Ooby-doo, it's everyone's favorite boomer and vintage lens enthusiast. And we're going to revisit the Hoodman on the Sony Alpha or A5000. And this is a different Hoodman. I bought this one used for 40 bucks. It's much smaller than the other one, except this one doesn't have a built-in tripod socket. I had to drill a hole in it. And I used this bar. And the reason I like it is because it has a gusset bend on each side and it makes it much more stiffer. Now I'm going to take this off for a minute. Oh, notice I didn't use a tripod screws. I just got some stainless steel 1/4-20 screws, and I just added bolts to you know, make up the difference. So I'm going to take this off because I want to show you something on the screen. You see, I'm in panorama, sweet panorama mode, and you have an arrow there. Rotate this. You can have an arrow there, have an arrow there. It's sort of sensitive. An arrow there. So if your arrow is there, you pan this way, which would be a landscape mode, and you could pan this way, which would be a landscape mode. But you could also pan in a portrait mode, and I found that the portrait mode it gives you more interesting results. And of course you could go this way if you want to. What happens is if you're in the horizontal mode, it sort of clips the top and bottom and it just stitches together one big long stitch. Whereas if you go this way and you pan across, it's an 8 megapixel final image, and it's almost exactly 16:9 aspect ratio. It's a little bit bigger, so if you want it exactly 16:9, you got to crop it a little bit. You lose a little bit on each end, but you get much more in your height, and that's the thing. It auto rotates it, so when you look at it, it fits 16:9 in your screen and also on your computer when you're viewing it. So I started doing it this way. So that's a very interesting thing, and we're going to see the results in the following samples I took. So let's shut this off for a minute, shall we? Put this back on. See, I drilled a hole in there, right? And I could use a 1/4-20. I tightened it up as much as I could without breaking the plastic, because what is this rubberized plastic? And then I have another 1/4-20. I didn't have a short enough screw, so I just put some bolts on it. There we go. Get this started. I had to file the slots a little bit to make it fit snug. And that's all I do is tighten it real tight. Yeah, that's great. It's beautiful. And now you can look through the viewfinder. Let's see, can we look through the viewfinder? Does something happen? Oh, you get the message. I mean, you put your eye right up to it, and then you could see everything in there, which is pretty cool. And we have our photodiox FD to Sony E mount. Now, these are the new FD type where you got to rotate the whole barrel instead of just the silver ring. And these things actually stop all the way down. So you could use like you could go from f2.8 to f22, because I looked and I could watch the aperture shut down, and even from 16 to 22 it moves a little bit, so it must be doing something. Whereas if I was to stick a old-time original FD on here with the silver ring, they don't stop down much to f8, so you got to keep that in mind when you're doing this business. It's something I found out quick strictly by accident. So this is the new improved version. It fits snugly. I don't have to have a piece of foam blocking it or anything. It fits really nice, and I can see what's going on in there, so I like this. But now we're going to go back to the old one, so I'm going to put this one in the corner, okay? This is the original modification I made, but this is a much bigger Hoodman, and a bigger Hoodman comes with a molded-in tripod socket. And I got rid of the big knurled rings, and I just added some threads, some nuts and washers to take up the slack for the however maximum depth I want the threads to go into each one of these devices. Now, why did I do this? Because I want to put a pistol grip on it, and pistol grip makes it look a lot cooler. And it's more retro high-tech looking with the pistol grip. You know, especially when you get up to your face and you're panning, it just looks like way cool, like you're doing something mysterious and important. Of course, all right, it's bigger, and so it covers more of the LCD. In fact, a little bit too much, but it's still very workable and usable. And the trick is to try and get these used at a good price, and then it doesn't matter. Don't try and buy them new. And it breathes life into these 5000 series Sony cameras. Their real name is ILCE dash something or other. That's the real name. And this alpha thing is just something they put up there. I call A because A. So this is really cool. And they both have the same panorama, since these are both exact same models. They both work the same. This is the Canon EF 24mm 2.8 on a Velo smart adapter, and all it does, it allows me to adjust the aperture through the camera, and I still have to go into manual focus to focus the thing, but it focuses tack sharp now, which is, and since it couples to the camera, I could focus wide open, and it stops down when I hit the shutter button. So it's got that going for it. Whereas this one, I have to preset the aperture. I mostly go in the manual mode, and then, you know, focus at that aperture. So f16 or f22, it might be a little dicey to center your depth of field on the subject, but I mean, that's only a minor difficulty. Now, this is a 28mm, this is the 24mm, and there is a difference in the field of view even on these crop sensors. And 28mm and the 24mm look really good when you're doing a vertical pan like this. When you're in portrait mode, oh man, that's the way to go. Of course, you don't get as wide a pan, but on the same token, it just looks better maybe for tighter subjects. So whatever lens you get on it, even when you're doing a vertical pan, you're still going to get a wider field of view. And you gain this way also, because it seems to me, and I could be wrong, maybe someone should check me out, when you do a horizontal landscape pan, it looks like it crops. You know, say this is your field of view, it looks like it cuts a little bit off the top and bottom. It looks like it does that. Plus, it's a much bigger file size, and that may be cumbersome. It's hard to like really look at them nice unless you have a giant monitor. Whereas when you do the vertical pan, it makes it almost exactly 16:9, and almost all laptop screens are 16:9 aspect ratio. So without further doggy do, why don't we jump into the sample pictures I took, and we'll take it from there. So this is a horizontal sweep in landscape mode using the Canon FD 28mm f2.8. Here is a vertical sweep using the same lens, and the red box is the approximate aerial of the horizontal 28mm. This is a continuation. It takes two vertical sweeps to get one horizontal sweep with the 28mm. Here is the single shot, no panoramic mode of that 28mm. And you can see the vertical sweep does give you more field of view with the same lens. Here's a vertical sweep from the Canon, and because it's 24mm, you're going to get more field of view at a given whatever you do. Now, all the following are just going to be 24mm f2.8. And I went to Morristown, and you can see he's got weird distortion. It doesn't look like a fisheye distortion, but it looks distorted. A lot of these pictures I had to adjust the dynamic range because maybe the shadows were too dark. I just like the way it looks. I mean, if I was to use the horizontal sweep, it would look too strange. And I would lose vertical field of view. Are you noticing all the ghosts Like there's a bicyclist in this picture. I got clipped a part of him. Here's the Dublin pub. And you could tell how it deals with perspective, where it just sort of, it looks like it rolls backwards. Now here's this is a vertical sweep, but I cropped it to make it look like a horizontal sweep. And the further away things are, the more natural they look. Like I was across the street. What's across the street? It can't be more than 50 feet, maybe less. And so you get this perspective distortion, especially if you're looking away. Everything looks like it rolls backwards. But this picture doesn't look too bad, even though it has a ghost truck in it. And that's the thing. You never know what's going to come out good looking. Like this one came out pretty good looking. It looks like a combination of this post office on the right and some ultra-modern cube building on the left. This is a vertical sweep, and I cropped it to look like a horizontal sweep. And it looks really good. Here's another picture that came out really nice looking. So the church looks really natural, and the building looks really natural. But even with the 24mm, I couldn't have got both of them. And here's another church, there's a street scene, and it looks really natural. And I couldn't have got that with the 24mm. And even if I used an 18 or a wider lens, it would have been problematic. Now here's interesting. It's got this weird distortion. And I did a vertical sweep using the 24mm, and it just stitched it together like drunkenly. Here's a ghost car, and this is a traffic circle, a roundabout they call it. And this is another one where I cropped it to look like a horizontal sweep. This is a vertical sweep. I think this came out pretty good, but notice how, depending on the way you're moving the camera, it looks like, the corners peel away. And here's interesting, these two old buildings in the middle of three newer cube monstrosities. And here's some historic buildings. Now think, when these buildings were put up, they were so cool and modern looking. And now, they're 100 years old. And what do you think of that? This building on the left is brand new when this picture was taken, about a year old. And the garage and the other buildings they might be 20 years old, but they're still new. And it did an excellent job on this parking garage. I can't believe the excellent job it did. I could not have gotten this perspective with just a 24mm alone. Now here's a very natural looking sweep, vertical sweep, because the buildings were far enough away that this perspective doesn't look like they're receding. And here's another example where everything's like 50 feet or more away, then the panorama really shines. This is the Pumpkin Lakes Library. We left Motown. We're in Pumpkin Lakes now. And this looks like a natural picture, even though it's a vertical sweep. Here's some ghost cars. I got to do this with more traffic so I can get all sorts of weird stroboscopic effects. And, this is the street scenes. This is America. This is the real America. This is what America looks like. America is not New York City. There's all these little tiny main streets around, and they're this quaintness. So for me, I like vertical sweeps with a moderate wide angle, 24, 28. I cropped this because I wanted to this is a situation where I wanted to get rid of some of the bottom foreground. I just wanted to do the sky.